Hello everybody, welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
How we doing?
I'm all right, mate. Yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I mean, we're really into the final stages of Sky Fantasy Football now. The thing I heard, shout out to Paul, is he still top?
He is still top. Yeah, he's smashing
that
it
he
still.
said on the Hub pod was that, and this was a couple of days ago, I don't know, maybe it was Monday, that there was only 17 days left, match days, of which City play on 6 of them. So Haaland's your 6 captaincy, he's done.
And did they record Monday?
I think so.
It's probably
There's
15 now,
days left, of which City play on 6 of them. So there's only really a handful of captaincies and a handful of moves. It really feels like, okay, it's it now. It's that last week of term vibe with Sky Fantasy Football. It's all in all been a fun season. How was your week? Meh, again?
I mean, just to give that a bit of context, I think there's a few people run out of transfers tonight.
Wow, yeah. But this is a really good entry point today.
Yes, there's a case to say subject to what you've got, and you know, if you only got 1 or 2 left, and I'm sure there'll be some people in that position, there's a case to say get it done. We've seen the Manchester City team tonight, for example. There's really kind of 2 real kind of entry points back into City, and tonight is one. So there would be a case just to say, right, I'm using what I've got on Manchester City left. My week, Suj, was okay-ish. Got a bit of a kick in the teeth last night, naturally, because I'd sold Odegaard rather than Martinelli. Yeah. It was a flip of a coin.
Yeah. Which
one I sold. Obviously, I didn't make that sale last night. It was last week that I made the sale. I can't remember who I bloody bought. Rashford. Bought Rashford on the Thursday back.
Said Rashford, Maddison, one or the other.
It was a flip of the coin. And what I was asking myself is, ordinarily, I think earlier in the season I'd have gone for the safer play because I was conscious in my mind, Odegaard definitely plays. Martinelli is not 100%. I was thinking about Chelsea's issues at right back, knowing that Reece James was injured. Just thought, you know what, Martinelli's ceiling's a bit higher. And not only does Martinelli hit the bench, but Odegaard actually gets a couple of goals as well. And that killed the little bit of gain I'd been chipping away. So I was about 1,300 or so, I think, after Leicester-Everton Monday night. With James Maddison, including missed penalty that he shouldn't have been taken in the first place anyway, but still it took him up to shot tier 2, so at least it wasn't a complete blank and a complete disaster from him, and he did assist Jamie Vardy's goal as well. I'm on 80 points for the week.
Smashing me, but you've used the transfer, right?
I need a 1, so I sold David Raya on Sunday, as I said, I bought Rashford last Thursday, but this week bought David De Gea in for Raya. I think most were going down the Ederson route, and I just fuck it, I was not doing it to myself again, to be honest. And Manchester United very quietly, I think it said last week, it was sort of 6 clean sheets in 8, so it might be like 7 in 10 now or so. Not too bad at all. 9 points straight away. It makes a change that it feels like a transfer worked straight away. Sunday captained Haaland naturally. Saturday captain Lewis Dunk for 20, so that was pretty good as well. To be honest, it would have been a really good week if I'd kept Odegaard rather than Martinelli, who's going to go tonight as well now. It's just about deciding where to go.
Cool. You beat me this week, but I haven't used the transfer. I'm on 75 for the week so far. Guess what? Same captains as you, and same captains as basically everybody. But I hadn't made any moves this week at all. I think I've been, last few weeks, I've been edging forward. I reached as high as around about 250. I'm back down to 350, 342 to be precise. Now, no transfers this week, 7 in hand. I'll be using 3 or 4 tonight to move on and bring in more City and what have you. Again, it was literally Dunk as captain on Saturday, Haaland on Sunday, Maddison, and then yesterday I had Martinelli as well. I'd come off my Arsenal last week as well. A few punts in the last few that haven't worked out really. I think Newcastle defence, I've been on double defence, Pope and Trips for a little while, and they keep leaking. They're just not picking up the tiering points at all.
Over the sort of November, December, January period, that was what killed me the most, was having none of it.
At the moment, it's not that I've fallen back madly, it's just I've not made any gains. And Rodrigo from Leeds, I thought, let me pile in for a few. They've been pony, so he's going tonight for sure.
And he was out of the team at the weekend as well, anyway.
Well, yeah. Jota, on the other hand, there's one punt that I took that's paid off not too badly because he popped up with a goal again.
Well, that could have backfired.
It didn't. It didn't. So, yeah, I'm measuring where I am off the top 100. I'm 68 points off the top 100 right now. The lowest that number's ever got to is about 55 points. So I'm falling back 10, 15 points. But 7 transfers to go. Give myself some good captaincy. Top 100 still the aim of the game. And for me, getting to top 100. If I'd have said to you at the start, I'm 342. 68 points off.
You need some differential captains to make that. It's not just that you're catching that. You've got to leapfrog 250 other people trying to do the same thing. True.
I'm just not sure if there's any fixture gain for me. If I go Brighton, City, Man United, if I have more of those with the extra fixtures, is there an opportunity to make up half of that difference, let's say, from extra fixtures, and then the other half from picking a right captain or what have you? So, yeah, let's see how it goes.
It's worth saying as well, you obviously mentioned Paul McAnulty is obviously storming it. He's first at the moment. Good luck, Paul. Win it, mate. Paul is obviously going to captain Haaland, right?
Yes.
He's got no reason, and we know Paul plays the game quite template anyway, he's got no reason to even remotely consider not captaining Erling Haaland in Manchester City games. For those chasing Paul, or in your case, chasing the top 100 finish, or chasing in a mini-league or something, you do not necessarily need to go against Haaland, but you need to consider the idea. And as I always say, pick your battles. But in terms of where we're going, there's no point bullshitting anyone. It's the same teams. It's teams basically playing tonight, tomorrow in the first instance. So City, United and Brighton. Right. I think in the case of Liverpool, it probably was a little bit earlier, or you'd bought on Sunday, for example. You can obviously add tonight, particularly if there's something in the team you see that's a differential that you really like, for example. I.e., Darwin Núñez has been sitting in my team. I gambled when they drew with Arsenal and got him in early that day. Bloody hell, I could have done with the team sheet that day because that's been haunting for me. But yet, he might do something for me tonight or on Saturday, and then I'll look to move him on. But there are differentials that you can seek, certainly within the other teams.
You know the one I want?
Go on.
And I think...
Alvarez, you're going to say, aren't you?
Yeah, because for the next 3 games, we see the lineup for City.
Is it next 3? Certainly the next 2, isn't it?
Yeah, it's West Ham today. Then when they play 3 p.m, on Saturday, isn't it? And they're all 3 p.m s.
Yes, and Everton is a 2 o'clock kickoff.
It's a 2 o'clock kickoff. So in one of the next 3 games, I'm hoping Haaland gets rested, Alvarez plays, and I can steam in and captain him. And I don't think, and I'm thinking that there'll be a few that will want to preserve a transfer and not want to do that move. Something like that.
The only thing with an Alvarez, like they've got 6 games to go, Manchester City, and there'll be many teams who've obviously only got 4 to go.
But I might daisy chain it, so I'm not going to sit and hold.
You're in a luxury that maybe you can consider that, but if you think about it, you're still probably just better off keeping him.
Alvarez,
if he ended up with 3 or 4 starts at Manchester City versus let's just say hypothetical Ollie Watkins will get 4 starts, or an Ivan Toney will get 4 starts, you're better off just sticking with that. I think.
Yeah.
You'll get the odd sub appearance and stuff. He can score off the bench. We spoke on yesterday's pod about his percentage returns. He scores in 60% of games that he starts, basically. So I'd see no reason why Haaland won't start tonight. Saturday might be a different case in between tonight and then Real Madrid Tuesday. But again, you've got the benefit of seeing the teams. But the City guy you want to buy, or City guys, for many of you listening or watching, will be tonight. And that team selection is going to have a big bearing. Someone is going to be in a position tonight where they panic. So what do we always say? Decide today what's your plan B. If I'm going to Alvarez tonight, right, Alvarez not in the team, what's your backup option? What's your plan? Is it wait for Saturday? Is it still do it because you think he'll get minutes off the bench? Is it a defensive player instead? Is it a Jack Grealish, for example, or Gundogan? What's your alternatives? Consider that before you see the team tonight to know what plan B is. For those who are buying 3 or 4, I recognise that's a little bit more awkward. I'll probably be going 2. But in terms of the games left, such that say non-Man City days, there are definitely splits that we're going to see in the camp in terms of where people buy and captaincy. So Newcastle's a good example, right? not next Thursday, but the Thursday after, May the 18th, to obviously host Brighton, single game day, and they've obviously got single game day with Leicester the following Monday as well. Trippier will be in a lot of teams, default. People like me maybe don't have the luxury to go and buy another Newcastle player. You got those two forwards are right putting their hands up and absolutely affordable right now. Isaki's 8-1 or something. I mean, Wilson's 7-9. So they're both affordable. And obviously, particularly, I think if people are going to go and buy it on that night when Newcastle play Brighton, if they're both in the team, there will be a split. So that's a key sort of night where you can get differentials. Liverpool versus Leicester, the Monday before that, Monday the 15th. Is there differentials to Mo Salah that night from the captaincy within Liverpool? You mentioned like a Jota. I'm sitting there with a Núñez right now. If I get to that night and Núñez is in the team, I'll probably captain him over Salah, for example, just to try something a little bit different that might get me a bigger jump. So there are some differential nights. We mentioned Saturday the 20th previously, where people who hold on to Kane, Brentford at home, people who hold on to Arsenal assets, Forest away, most will probably end up defaulting to Marcus Rashford that day. Because the reality is the likes of Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka, Kane are expendable. Kane, I think, if you can work holding him into your plan at the moment, might be quite nice. There are differentials who can be considered, obviously, from outside these teams, which is essentially the two Manchester clubs, Brighton, people have a bit at Liverpool at the moment, and Newcastle's the other one to target. There are a few differentials I think can be considered. If the money's in the bank, it would be a weird one right now, but no one will have Sonny. And he's played different the last couple of games. And it might be that he's played different the last couple of games because there have been high-profile opponents who play a little bit higher up the pitch. I wouldn't advocate going Sonny, but if people's looking for an explosive differential, he's the sort of one, like we discussed yesterday, Tony will blank score. Sonny might blank, 3 goals and assist, goal, something like that, where the explosiveness is there. I can't see where you'd captain him other than maybe Saturday the 20th, or if you really wanted to take a punt away to Villa Saturday the 13th, which doesn't seem right, but as discussed yesterday, Villa are really playing a high line at the moment, and Sonny is probably the best in the league in terms of time in his runs.
For me, it only makes it worthwhile if I'm going to captain him. Because I don't need anybody for captaincy other than, if one of my players gets injured or is rested like Haaland, then sure, I haven't got coverage. But other than that, from all of the teams that I need for captaincy coverage between now and the end of the season, I have it other than Tottenham, but they're not best on any given day. So
no, I hear that.
It's if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it to really go against and captain him. I'm not going to do it just to get his points. So for me, it's only worth it in my situation if I'm going to put the armband on him.
I think there's one other team outside of, I call them the 5 at the moment, really, who I think might be worth consideration, and is really, really punty, but there are a couple of neighbours in there. Any guesses for a team, Suj?
West Ham United.
No.
I thought you were trying
This is over the next week, not necessarily tonight.
Oh, over the next week?
Yeah, as an entry point.
Are you going to say something like Forest or something?
No.
No idea.
Fulham, yeah.
Yeah. The Leicester, Southampton, Palace.
Yeah. I think someone like you with a 7 left, if you're looking again for a differential, the idea of going in, not tonight, by the way, next Monday, you'll see the team against Leicester. You're going for Leicester, Southampton, Palace, 3-1 over the majority. Move that on to then City. The following day on the Sunday for City's 3-1 at the end. Now, of course, if you run out of transfers, you could just leave that be. But I think they're probably the one outside the obvious at the moment where there's a couple that you could consider. One of the real shames, obviously, Andreas Pereira got a bad injury at the weekend, and so did Tim Ream. Both out for the rest of the season. Just give us a bit of clarity at centre-back. Diop and Adebayor are both 6.7. Diop had a much higher number of passes than Adebayor in the Manchester City game at the weekend, despite him being the one who came on 20 minutes into the game. I mean, it was about 45 passes or so, Diop, despite coming on after 20 minutes against Manchester City. So he would maybe be the one, but you could always use tonight's game as a guide as well, because that doesn't make sense to buy the Fulham defender tonight. And I don't think it would make sense to buy a Fulham attacker tonight as well. This is one that you would wait for Monday. I think the offensive one to potentially punt into, if people wanted to do it, is Harry Wilson. With Pereira out injured, so he's liable to pick up a lot of those set pieces. I'd love to have said to you Mitrovic, but he's not back till the Southampton game. If Mitrovic was back Leicester, it'd be so ideal just to punt that straight back in for the 3 games. But he's not back till the Southampton game, which I think also means, like, don't go Vinicius. If Vinicius in the team against Leicester, he's dirt cheap. Don't do it, because he won't play against Southampton afterwards. So I think Harry Wilson would probably be the most reliable one. There's no point going for a Paulinho at this stage. You're going for someone who is unlikely to, but could explode. I couldn't really make much of a case for it, but I think they're maybe the one team outside of the Manchester clubs, Brighton, Newcastle, Liverpool, that will probably get completely overlooked, and they have some enablers in there. But so do Brighton. Like, realistically, when you get to Monday, do you go and buy a Mitoma or do you buy a Harry Wilson? You still go with a Brighton player, don't you?
Yep.
But I think because of that, Fulham's the one that might get completely overlooked, where if you've got the luxury of transfers, consider that as an alternative differential. But even within that Brighton team, there's differentials, right? From Mitoma, McAllister, March, Caicedo, Gross subject to where he plays, even an Adam Webster as an alternative to Lewis Dunk. You've got Enciso putting his hand up now. I don't actually think you need to look at alternative clubs, particularly. Fulham's the only one, and an explosive player like Son, you just scrap the gains, etc., and you go, right, I'm going for it. Otherwise, you're still looking for the differentials between, say, Wilson versus Isak, Nunes versus Jota, Stones versus Akanji. It's these sort of split decisions still within the same teams, I think, unfortunately.
Cool. What about the games? Any tier pointing or anything that's particularly stood out? Like you said, I mean, we can gloss over some of the ones that, as much as they got tier points, we're still not buying them.
Yeah, I'll just cover off a few of the bits from last Wednesday, and then we'll do some captaincy. Levi Colwill played with Dunk at Forest last week, over 100 passes, but obviously Webster was back in against Wolves at the weekend. McAllister played the majority of that game deeper. We don't really know at this stage where he's going to play, but of course the benefit of tomorrow night, at least against Manchester United, is seeing the team. He and Caicedo both tier 2 passing that game at Forest. McAllister hit tackles as well. Like your mate Nico Williams, 1 completed pass in 65 minutes. There's a few like that over this last week, actually. Big passing numbers for the Liverpool players at West Ham last midweek. Joel Matip passing and shots, obviously scored in the game. Van Dijk 111, Robertson 93, Trent 83 in that one. Jones and Fabinho both passes and tackles. 6 Chelsea players hit passing tier against Brentford, but as we know, haven't watched. Did you watch that last night?
No.
Mate, they were
I heard I listened to bits on the radio. Who, Chelsea?
Oh my God.
Game over.
Yeah, just the only Chelsea player I could go anywhere near recommending is Enzo Fernandez at the moment, and he was poor last night, to be totally honest. He, Kovacic, Chilwell and Chalobah hit tier 2 passing against Brentford, which is interesting because Silva and Fofana tier 1. I think part of that is because Chelsea had so much of the ball. It wasn't quite the need to use the 2 centre-backs in play. Raya with save and clean sheet was a nice little parting gift that wasn't expected for myself. For City against Arsenal, Ruben Diaz, the only one in the passing, and I want to talk about him a bit more in a sec. So 65 passes for him. Rodri only 54 against Arsenal. Haaland 5 shots on target. How he come out of that game with only a goal and 2 assists, God knows. Rob Holding actually had the highest number of passes in that fixture, 73. Gabriel only 51. No passing tiers in the Newcastle-Everton game. We don't expect that from Newcastle, although Trippier was one off in their game against Southampton at the weekend. Wilson shot tier 2 and had it again as a substitute against Southampton at the weekend. Nothing of interest from Southampton. Bournemouth. Victor Lindelof hit tier 1 passing for Manchester United at Tottenham. Luke Shaw hit tier 2. Lindelof, I think, I looked back, he's only started 7 games this season, Suj.
Wow, okay.
Is it tier passing in 6 of them?
Oh, wow.
7.5 defender. This is, yeah.
Good value.
I think most will overlook United defensive. And actually, beyond the Brighton game, and the entry point probably is tomorrow night, beyond the Brighton game, the fixtures look very capable for clean sheets, I think. And I think that should be considered. It's part why I went with De Gea. Lindelof is not out of my thinking potentially to add to that. Varane is targeting a return for the FA Cup final. Could he return beforehand? Yes, possibly. But to be totally honest with you, if he does, I think he plays with Lindelof anyway. And Shaw would go back to left back. That would be my take. I mean, I heard, I didn't see it, but I heard Harry Maguire was booed when he come on the other night. So I think Shaw will stay in at the moment. There's a case, therefore, to put Luke Shaw in the conversation, but I think Lindelof's probably worth the saving at the moment. Christian Romero with 6 tackles, 1. It's good old Christian Romero, isn't he? That's one more for the FPL pods. And just cover off some bits from the weekend. He says, I'm nicking all this data from FF stuff as per usual. Anderson and Ward in tackles for Palace against West Ham, but nowhere near passing, actually. 32-36, respectively. I imagine there's probably a tiny bit of ownership, perhaps particularly on Gay at the moment. Nothing to speak of West Ham. There were passing tiers for Ben Mee and Aaron Hickey of Brentford against Nottingham Forest, for whom Keylor Navas made 6 saves. And that's not the first kind of big number of saves for Navas recently. Another one, if perhaps you ran into a goalkeeper problem come Monday, could be worth a punt, considering they have Southampton at home Monday night. Dunk, Webster and Billy Gilmore, who got a start, were the only ones in passing for Brighton against Wolves, despite their mass domination. We're not looking at Wolves, certainly. I don't think we're looking at Bournemouth or Leeds either, although Dango Otora, I know, 8 tackles, 1 in that fixture. For City at Fulham.
He's an attacking player.
What?
He's an attacking player.
Yeah, 8 tackles, 1. He's a winger, yeah.
Pressing.
I guess so, yeah. Something really interesting from Manchester City Fulham on Sunday. So Akanji and Rodri 73 passes completed, Ruben Diaz 78, Kyle Walker 92, John Stones 49. And I think the consciousness at the moment is...
He's playing in midfield.
Well, he started at centre-back, and it's worth saying towards the end of that game, City played a flatter 4 for sort of the last 20 minutes or so. But yeah, was moving from centre-back into midfield. But the movement means I don't think he's part of control phases of possession so much, whether he's doing it from centre-back or from right-back. And I think the instinct at the moment with City is, he's the one. John Stones is the one. I think looking at the data at the moment, Ruben Diaz is the one. Now the problem with that is Ruben Diaz is 10.6 and John Stones is 8.9 and Akanji's 8. At this stage, the value of the player is not so important because once someone goes in, they go in. It's more a case, can you afford it or not? I would like to get to Ruben Diaz tonight as a priority. Is he worth 2.6 million more than Akanji? I'm not sure. But at the moment, I don't see Ruben Diaz not playing. Whereas Akanji's obviously doing this bit of covering at left back, and we know Nathan Ake is close, and it's not like Laporte can't play there in a fixture like West Ham or Leeds. Whereas at the moment, it just feels like Ruben Diaz will play everything. So I think if Diaz is available to you rather than Stones, that would be the advice, I think, at this stage. Get to Ruben Diaz if you can. And again, he's one that was going to fall into the differential line. 2.6% ownership in the top 1,000.
Nothing.
Many are not going to be able to get there. And let's not pretend that he's not capable of scoring from a set piece or something. So, as is John Stones, and John Stones is, of course, capable of hitting passing. And I imagine, by the way, tonight against West Ham probably won't matter. They'll all hit it. Look at the numbers of the Liverpool players last week against you.
Yep.
So whoever plays tonight will probably hit it. But in terms of ongoing on the future games, yeah, I think if you can get the Diaz, looks the better play now. Mind you, if you'd sat here with me a couple of weeks ago, I'd have said Laporte. He ain't got nowhere near the team.
Yeah, difficult. Whoever you pick, it's going to be the other one, isn't it?
Kyle Walker's 9 and has started the last 3 and come back in. But I think Diaz worth the extra. Midfield, I mean, there's so many you can punt there, isn't there? You could punt Foden if he's back in the team tonight, no ownership. Mahrez won't have a lot of ownership. He's in 4 teams in the top 1,000. Phil Foden will be in, he's not in none, he's in 1. Rodri's ownership,
boring.
8.6. The thing with, you know what, I was looking at Rodri's numbers, and it's so consistent as always, right?
5, 7.
Other than the Arsenal game, interestingly, since he had a 1-pointer against Wolves, and I think I want to say he got taken off after about 55 minutes, back at the end of January.
It was early.
Since then, the only games that he hasn't got at least 4 in, as in 4 points, were the 2 games against Arsenal. 7-13, 2-7-4, 8-5, 4-4, 5-1-5. But do you want to be buying the 5s at this stage?
At this stage of the season, definitely not. And it kind of covers off a lot of the kind of some of the questions that we've had in on Twitter. For example, Addy's asking, if you're chasing, is it better to go Captain Salah than Haaland for tonight's game? I mean, you talk about this. At the end of the day, in Sky, you're either top 3 or it doesn't make a difference, right? So it's kind of like, I'm at 340. For me,
don't know if he's in a cash mini league or we don't know, right?
It's if it matters, if at the end of the season your rank doesn't matter to you, and say I could either now go for it and go for top 100, and it could make me 1,000. And if I end up 1,000, do I care? And if I don't care, then fine, go for it. But if I want to maintain a consistency of 150, 200, like it's my first season, to be fair, of having any kind of rank, then go safe. So I guess it depends on how much do you care about your overall rank at the end of the season. If it goes wrong, at least you punted it.
By the way, people will say you shouldn't, but...
What, care for your rank?
Yeah, no, as in like if you're outside the top 3 or top 100 or whatever. But if you pull it off... Like for you, if you die on your ass from here and you finish 7th, 8th, 100th, like nothing changes for you. I imagine that probably would arguably even maybe still exceed your expectations from pre-season in a weird way.
Yeah, top 500 maybe pre-season.
But you'll be really proud of yourself if you finish top 100. Yeah, it doesn't matter to no one else, but you will feel like just internally you've achieved something.
Yeah.
So just remember that everybody's different and you'll have your own targets. And when we say certain things, you know, it might be for you that you're 130th and you want to get in the top 100, and just having Rodri just chipping away might be like the right answer for you, for example. Just a few more bits before we move on to captaincy and stuff. So as mentioned, no Newcastle tearing against Southampton. Again, Shaw with more passes than Lindelof in the United Villa game at the weekend. Fernandes played sort of rightish forward. He's, by the way, one that definitely falls into the line of, oh, can I punt this as a differential if it's affordable? Yes, of course. 4.4% of teams in the top 1,000, 10.5. You can certainly take Fernandes on with Rashford. We're so late in the season, again, it's not like, is Fernandes worth more than Rashford? No, of course he's not, but it's just, can you get the player or not at this stage? No passing for Konate, interestingly, for Liverpool against Tottenham at the weekend, though he did hit tackles here. Robertson, Van Dijk in the 90s, Trent and Fabinho in the 70s. Shots here for Pedro Porro and Heung-min Son in that game at Anfield at the weekend. There was carnage, as mentioned yesterday, in the Leicester versus Everton game Monday night. I think whatever you've got from those two teams, you're probably selling. As mentioned last week, the Leicester assets, they're never best. Yes, they have 3 Monday night games, but you've got Brighton next Monday. They play Liverpool the Monday after. They play Newcastle the Monday after that. They're never better. A Maddison, etc., if you've gone in, I think is certainly expendable. That's a large chunk of money to hold on to, James Maddison, 9.3, when you've got your likes of Rodri and Grealish who are cheaper, even if you need to go to a midfielder. Granit Xhaka, 3 shots on target and 2 assists last night, although an FPL counts as 3 assists, by the way. Jorginho and Thiago Silva, the only players with passing tier. Despite the fact that Chelsea play Manchester City on the penultimate Sunday and have Manchester United on the Thursday afterwards, unless something changes in these next couple of games against Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, you could not pay me to have a Chelsea player at the moment. I cannot explain to you how bad they were last night. That's not to discredit Arsenal in any way. They were horrendous, Suj. So bad. Is your phone ringing? No. Are you going to pay me to have a Chelsea player? You can't.
£20.
That looks fake.
No, it's real.
It sounds fake.
All plastic now, don't they? To buy Enzo Fernandez.
You give me 20 quid to buy Enzo Fernandez. Yeah. No, I've only got 4 transfers left.
Cash is it. Nah.
Keep your 20 quid.
All right, I just wanted to test it. Because when you said I couldn't pay you,
20
when
quid.
You see the cash in front of you.
If you get real money out, like proper sizable, yeah, I'll get him for crack.
Do you know, just for
I'll get Aubameyang.
Just for the listeners, because so they know, if you'd have got 20 quid out and told me I can have it to buy Fernandes, I'd have fucking bought in to get 20 quid.
Yeah, I know you
Fuck
would.
my rank.
Yeah, I know how you are, mate. Captaincy for the weekend.
Only because I'm not going to win the 50 grand.
Are you going Haaland tonight?
Yes. Assuming he's in the team. Everything's always assuming he's in the team. Haaland tonight is a given. Yes, they're gonna butcher us, and if not, got back up a Salah.
I don't think it's a pick your battle fixture. I really don't.
No.
Even from the extent people say, yeah, well, Salah might get more minutes. Well, Liverpool got another game Saturday as well. Maybe not. I don't think these Wednesday and Saturday games are Haaland pick your battles unless you really are chasing hard. But I still think you'd be better off picking the battles in the later games, like when City played Chelsea, Brighton played Southampton that day, or when City played Brighton, an alternative City player. I don't think West Ham and Leeds at home.
No.
Of all the 6 games that City have got left, those are the 2, if he's in the team, don't want to take it on. I think for Saturday, it's worth having an idea in your mind of who your alternative is if he's not. I don't think he's a guaranteed start on Saturday.
Yep.
Tomorrow night, Brighton United is interesting.
I might end up with De Gea, Dunk, Bruno and Rashford. And maybe Mitoma. I think I'd go Rashford or Bruno, depending on what I'm feeling. I'll probably go Rashford or Bruno. But I'll have 5 players in that game, so it's going to be a...
Dunk and Rashford have both got similar ownership at the moment. I guess in theory both could increase a little bit tomorrow night. I think the template captaincy play will still most likely for many, I would have thought, be Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
But there are a few differentials to have, certainly, in the likes of Mitoma. What I'd say is if Wan-Bissaka is in the United team, I would not gamble Mitoma as an alternative captaincy tomorrow night. Wan-Bissaka played him really well in the semi-final. I know Wan-Bissaka didn't play so well at Tottenham afterwards, but I think Wan-Bissaka will play that game tomorrow night.
Saturday,
Rashford's probably I might go Dunk over Rashford tomorrow night. I'm not sure. To be honest, I think both teams score, so I think Rashford's probably the right play out of those 2. Go on, Serge, sorry.
Saturday, Haaland.
Saturday, Haaland, as said, consider your alternatives. I think if not a Manchester City, say you come out tonight for whatever reason with just Haaland and he's not in the team, by all means, yes, you could buy an Alvarez. But I think if you've got alternatives like Kane or Salah, that's probably the way to go. Yeah. Salah will be a little bit risky if he plays tonight, I think, because that's the only game you won't see the team, because they're at 5:30 at the weekend. So Kane against Palace for many will be a good alternative. He's still in a decent number of teams, I want to say, Harry Kane.
I haven't even had a look, to be honest with you. I got rid of him a while ago.
Still in 75% of teams. So consistent. Look at him, even in this period of, since Conte's gone, 8, 7, 4, 9, 8, 7. So consistent.
Sunday, Rashford again. It's a Man United player at West Ham over an Arsenal player at Newcastle, surely.
I don't know about that. So there's every case to say you can go and enter Newcastle again on Sunday. That doesn't feel quite right going in versus Arsenal. But if you want Newcastle versus Leeds the following week, which you could make a case actually, that because of, say, Rashford against Wolves arguably looks best, that gives you an extra additional captaincy option for that one. And I think most on Isak Wilson will wait, for example. And if Gabriel doesn't make it, there really is more of a case. So Gabriel limped off last night, and very bizarrely, Arsenal pissed about taking him off. He went down about 4 times before they took him off. Mad. The game was won. If it's... Kivior did quite all right last night, actually. He's a left foot who played right-sided centre-back. Obviously, if Gabriel's out and Saliba's out, you've got him who's inexperienced, and he did look fine last night, but I don't think we should judge anyone against that Chelsea. And Holding at centre-back, they're going to panic a bit, I think. And under that circumstance, if Gabriel was out, my instinct is he'll probably make it, by the way. But if he was out, I think arguably that would make Isak or Wilson the best choice on Sunday, actually. With that crowd at St James's under that pressure, with Arsenal playing backup centre-backs. Arguably not even their first choices, their third and fourth choices, right? Because it would probably be Ben White from right-back, who they can't shove in because Tommy Asu's injured as well. Arguably, they'd both be the third and fourth choice centre-backs. So you could make a case as fifth and sixth choice for Arsenal if that's where it lands. So I think you could make a case to say that's a really good one where you're looking for the differential, yes, most are going to go Rashford Sunday, clearly. But the Newcastle assets at home to Arsenal, maybe particularly if Gabriel's out. I don't think I'll be adding Isak or Wilson personally, so unfortunately probably will just be... I couldn't pick Trippier over Rashford on those fixtures, I don't think.
Last but not least, Monday, which is a bank holiday here in the United Kingdom. I've got Brighton at home to Everton is clearly the best. It'll be Dunk or Mitoma for me.
Dunk starts on 5 in that certainty.
And as the thing is, like, Everton did well against Leicester. Why? Because they were pressing high?
Everton did well against Leicester.
Why? Why did they score 2 goals? Because they were pressing high?
They weren't shy playing the ball in behind in the first 15, 20 minutes or so.
Will that work against Brighton, or will they just get half,
I mean, look, Calvert-Lewin into the channels, but to be honest, Brighton will put more pressure on the ball to stop the first pass out in the first place. In the second half, it was more through ball carrying. Then you've got to be brave to beat Brighton's press, and Brighton are one of the best at doing it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'll be Dunk or Mitoma for me, because I like on both of them.
That's the sort of one, though, where the likes of a Mitoma or Welbeck as an alternative, Enciso, if you've gone that way, whoever plays, could explode in that sort of fixture. I think hard-pressed to look beyond the Brighton player on Monday. I do think the likes of a Wilson, Fulham, as I said, as an interesting alternative, because they're still shit defensively, Leicester.
Harry Wilson, just for clarity, not Callum Wilson.
Harry Wilson of Fulham, yes, not Callum Wilson of Newcastle. It'll probably be, for me, I think, unfortunately, Haaland, Rashford, Dunk. That's probably your template over the next 5 days. It's what do you want to take on if you're chasing, essentially.
Okie dokie. A few questions we've had in on Twitter, James, that we'll cover off. Shout out Ian Parron. It's not even a question, but he says, can you express my annoyance for Arteta taking off Zinchenko when he did? How many passes was he on?
Mind you, people who would have had Gabriel would be like, let him keep going down. He's getting close to 60 as well.
Yeah.
Zinchenko got taken off fairly early.
Frustration.
I didn't think he played well, actually. One of the Arsenal players had a bad night, and he is sloppy defensively in terms of his attention span off the ball. Arsenal, it's not the first time. Think of Walcott's goal. Have you seen Madueke's goal?
No.
It's not in any way similar to Walcott's goal against them, but it's that kind of run on the inside. And I know it wasn't Zinchenko was in that position against Southampton, but that's twice now Arsenal have been caught out with a pass from kind of half space left inside the left-sided defender and conceded a goal. What was your question? Ian's unhappy about it. Sorry,
He's just
Ian.
unhappy.
Yeah. I don't like Arteta, so whatever on it.
Yeah. If I see Arteta in the street, I'll get in his face for you. Tim Barry, Maddison transferred to any City player except Diaz or KDB. The punt is Alvarez, safe pick Rodri, or maybe a Kanji. I'm 69th overall. No laughing at the back. Please discuss. I think we just did. You've been through all of the potential City assets that we could have there. I think he's on the money there.
Just a point on De Bruyne. Obviously, he has that explosive nature, right? 45 points in his previous 4 fixtures prior to obviously missing the Fulham game and in 1.7% of the top 1,000. We think that he did train yesterday. That doesn't mean he's going to play, but we think we've spotted him in one photograph where we think City were trying to hide him, actually. Is he worth 11.3? No, but again, it doesn't matter. It's can you get the player at this stage? So you want to
Bruno
sell
or KDB for the run-in, all things equal.
I think he's probably more. Is Bruno? I'm trying to work out if Bruno's worth more than, say, like a Grealish or someone like that. To be honest, I'm not sure. I think the other thing to say is KDB's 2 biggest hauls from those 45 points were 13 points against Liverpool, 19 points against Arsenal.
Big game, Kev.
Space.
Yeah.
Space easier against these opponents than what's likely to come. And I think things like, particularly like West Ham tonight, like I don't think Guardiola will be desperate for him to play tonight. Everton away is one I really wouldn't be surprised if Alvarez starts rather than KDB, for example, on that Sunday. Again, you'll see the team. KDB probably is worth any of the others extra. I think the one who's capable of the explosion really is probably Mahrez, isn't it? How many does he start out of 6? Could be 5, could be 1, couldn't it? Yeah. Really could be with him. But I think he's the one, if he's in the team, if Mahrez and Grealish played every week, I think you'd fancy Mahrez to outdo Grealish as an example. Mahrez is the one that's got that real capability to take home the match ball, for example. So I think that's the one I might punt tonight if he's in the team.
Bruno or Diaz?
As in Bruno Fernandes or Diaz?
To buy this midweek.
Ruben Diaz for me.
Diaz. And the last question is Cam, who says, how many Brighton is the right amount for the run-in? I think, obviously it depends on the rest of the makeup of your team, but for me, I'll only end up with 2 because I've got a blend of City and United and I need to keep a bit of Newcastle and what have you.
So I've got 4 left.
Transfers, that is, not Brighton players.
Yes, sorry, transfers. I have Duncan March at the moment. I have 4 transfers left. My intention is to buy 1 or 2 Manchester City players tonight, subject to the team. And then the idea is probably to leave transfers until that final penultimate Sunday when City and Brighton both have 3-for-1s over the majority of the league. So, for example, my intention would be Martinelli and Maddison are disposable for me. And then I'm left in a position where I'll have 3 Liverpool, Konate, Salah and Nunez, and 2 of those 3 are going to go when I hit that final Sunday. That's the plan. And whether that's City or Brighton players at that stage, I don't know. Do I buy another Brighton player tomorrow if I only buy 1 Manchester City tonight? Probably not, I don't think. I'm quite happy to go with that Duncan March, I think, and leave it be. But they're enablers that allow you more power. So it might even be that I look at tonight and say, I'm take the decision and go, right, I want to get Diaz and Mahrez, as I said, as an example, right? I can't make that work, selling Martinelli and Maddison. So I could take a call and particularly say if Nunez wasn't in the Liverpool team tonight and go, right, I'm going to add another cheeky Brighton now to help make that affordable, and then I just leave myself 1 left. I'd probably rather not do that. I think I'm more likely to make 1 transfer tonight rather than 3. So I'm just going to go Dunk March. It's probably more, rather than a Brighton specific, it's probably more the group core. And I think it's sensible to consider having backups. So I wouldn't be comfortable only having 1. The reason I wouldn't be comfortable only having 1 right now is I think there is a closeness of games, and we've seen De Zerbi react to last week and say he realised his players couldn't play 3 games in 6 days, essentially. And that's going to come again in that Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday period at the end. So if you need it for a captaincy, I'd want to have at least a second Brighton. Similarly, my take on getting De Gea last Sunday was for the same reason. Give me a backup just in case something does happen to Marcus Rashford in this run-in, for example. So I think it's probably more about getting pairs. You don't really just want to run with just Haaland right now either. I wouldn't want to run with just 1 Liverpool right now.
Yeah. I mean, I've got 3 sitting there in Konate, Jota and Salah, and I'll only go down to 2. I'm not going to sell 2 of them to give me 1 because I want coverage. But the only thing is with Liverpool, other than that Leicester game, I don't know if I'll captain anyone after Brentford at home on the weekend. I think I can come off them. They could be fall guys, but I don't see myself captaining any of them. I'll take a punt on Salah for that Monday night because it's a long gap from Brentford to Leicester.
If you come off Liverpool after this weekend, let's just say I just wanted to keep Salah.
Konate and Jota I can do.
I wouldn't be comfortable just keeping the 1 just for that Monday night against Leicester. I may even also determine that it's best captaincy versus Villa Saturday 20th, maybe even possibly. I'd want to keep a couple. But if you come off Liverpool this weekend, this is what we'd always said weeks ago, is we could do with Man City Leeds staying on Sunday the 7th, because it would have been hard Liverpool into
Straight
hard
to
City.
Yeah.
So now if you come off Liverpool this weekend, you're either going really Newcastle Sunday or Brighton Monday.
Yeah,
which
but
is
Brighton's
fine.
A 6 for 3.
Which is fine.
Double the fixtures.
Because what you do, if you decided to come off, the thing is you're not going to sell Salah, I don't think.
No, he's the one I'm going to hold.
Because of the Leicester game. But if you decided, let's just say you went like me, Nunez and Konate, for example, if you decided to come off one of them and put a Brighton player in, you're probably putting a couple of million in the bank. And that might be the difference to come back round to the City-Everton game and add in a Diaz, for example,
Bruyne.
or the week after, or De Bruyne, exactly that. So that's a different way of looking at it. But it's probably more about pairing. The one that I'm really comfortable with going with just one at the moment is Newcastle. And that's purely because, without any question, Kieran Trippier plays unless he gets injured. Whereas I feel like a Marcus Rashford, with them playing the Thursday against Chelsea, Sunday against Fulham, ahead of the FA Cup final. Not that I think he'd get rested against Chelsea, but it's a possibility. Also, Chelsea are shit offensively, so De Gea might be the better captaincy when it comes round in any case. So I think they're the one that I'm happy to go with just one is Newcastle, but then Isak and Wilson are two of the best differentials in this at the moment. And I won't rule out the possibility of going for one of them on Sunday, which is part why if the City team is not to my liking tonight, I'm more likely to make just one transfer and go, shall I pair up the second Newcastle maybe?
Cool. Well, listeners, there's a lot of food for thought there in this episode. We're back at you next week as we keep preparing for the run-in. If you want to support the show, you can have it at patreon.com/planetfpl, access to James's planner and the Slack channel, and get yourself prepped up for next season now, really. But it is the start of the month, and having as many of you support the show does help keep the lights on. Anything else to
add? No.
COTC tomorrow.
It's Wolves Villa, which I know Bradley Parker's massively looking forward to after that spanking at Brighton at the weekend. So probably a bit more Villa talk than Wolves. That's COTC tomorrow, and we'll discuss the 4 Premier League games Tuesday to Thursday in a bit more detail on Friday as well.
Lovely jubbly. Enjoy, stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.